Greetings, my name is Kerry and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be giving a bit of an update on a video that I made about a year ago, which was to do with the oldest books on my Goodreads TBR, which was a bit of a challenge I set myself for last year, which was to try and get through some of those books. And so I thought a year on I'd give a bit of an update on how I got on with that, whether I did actually manage to get through those books or not. It's still a long going thing for me really, so I'm gonna be talking about some of the next little set of books that are going on that list too. When I made the video, which was just under a year ago, I will link that video for you if you're interested to go and check that out. There were 34 books that I classed as the oldest books on my TBR, which were all books that I added to Goodreads in the year 2014. So that was the year I started using Goodreads, and at the time the majority of my books were in storage. These aren't necessarily the books I've owned for the longest, they were just the ones that I happened to have not in storage when I started using Goodreads. But in terms of having a target for clearing some of these books, this seemed like a good place to start. It was a fairly mixed result really. I've not got this in a format that's easy to read. So I actually read 10 of the books on that list. I've got a couple of them here. The majority of the ones that I read I decided not to keep, but well, actually it's about half and half. 5 of the books that I read I really enjoyed. One of them is called Imitation Church, which I have actually lent to a friend at the moment, so I don't have my copy of that. And then the other ones that I read and decided to keep were The Murderer on the Links by Agatha Christie. I think I read this in December. The Air I Breathe by Louie Giglio. I don't remember at what point in the year I read that. The Scapegoat by Daphne du Maurier, which I read in August, and The Imitation of Christ by Thomas Kempis, which I think I finished in December. So they were 5 that I really enjoyed. There were also 5 that I didn't enjoy quite so much, but ultimately decided to unhaul, which were Remembrance by Theresa Breslin, My Last Duchess by Daisy Goodwin, Lars Orchestra Saves the World by Alexander McCall Smith, Lucky Man by Michael J. Fox, and Journey to the Centre of the Earth by Jules Verne. Those are the 10 books from that list that I managed to read. There were also 7 books on that list that I decided I didn't want to read, so I unhauled them. Some of them I tried sort of the first chapter and couldn't really get into them. So 4 of those were from the same series. That was Black Trillium, Blood Trillium, Lady of the Trillium and Sky Trillium. I can't remember the names of the authors. They were written by a combination of authors. Some of them were written by one author and some by multiple authors, and they all wrote different ones in the series, and it was very confusing, and I read the first chapter of the first one and didn't like it, so they all went. We had a book called Sisterland by Curtis Sittenfeld, which was about 500 pages long, and I managed about 150 pages before I gave up because I was just so frustrated by the main character. 2 more books that I read the first chapter or so and couldn't get into them, so that was Catch-22 by Joseph Heller and Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. So both of those books I unhauled at Christmas because I just decided I didn't want to read them. There's one more on this list that I'm going to mention now, which I am in the process of reading, but I'm not sure if I'm actually going to finish it or not. So this was my book death row pick for January and I haven't managed to finish it yet. This is The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. I'm about 120 pages into it and it's hard work. There's some quite difficult topics in there and I've just not been in the mood to carry on with it. I did manage to read a little bit in February, so if I haven't finished it by the end of March I won't be keeping it. I'm not sure if this video will be published by the end of March. So then there's a number of books that were on that list that I put onto my book death row to try and help me get to them more quickly. Some of the books I just mentioned that I read and unhauled were ones that were on my book death row, and that's why I read them when I did. And then these are the rest of the other ones that I haven't managed to get to yet. So half of them are on my book death row and half of them I'm fairly confident I'm going to enjoy, so I'm trying to get myself to pick them up when I want to read them. So we have The People's Queen by Vanora Bennett, Magic Kingdom for Sale and The Black Unicorn by Terry Brooks. These are the first 2 books in a series. The Confidential Agent by Graham Greene, My Life as a Traitor by Zara Garamani, Enigma by Robert Harris, The Confessions of Catherine de Medici by C.W. Gautner, Sweets by Tim Richardson, and The Misbegotten by Catherine Webb. So these are all books that I read the first chapter or so and decided I probably do want to read them at some point. I probably will enjoy them, and I put them on my book death row to try and help me get to them a bit more quickly. Then there are some that I felt fairly confident that I was probably going to enjoy, or actually these first two didn't go on death row because they're both sequels and I needed to reread the first book in the series before I got to these. So the first one is The Embers of Heaven by Alma Alexander. You'll have seen me put this on many a TBR and I haven't got to it yet. I did actually reread the first book in this series, I think in March or April last year, so this is really high on my list to get to. I am going to try and read it. I mean, I was going to read it in February and I didn't get around to it. I was going to read it every month for a long time and didn't get around to it, so I'm aiming to try and get to this really soon. Whether I will or not is another matter. And then we have Secret She Left Behind by Diane Chamberlain. So again, this is a sequel and I haven't reread the first book in this series yet. So this will take me a little bit longer to get to, but still is the plan to try and get to it soon. What I'm aiming to do is every month I'm picking one book from this list to read. If I've already picked books on my book death row that are from this list, I may or may not pick up another book as well. It just depends on how many books I'm trying to get through. These other ones are ones that I am fairly confident I'm going to enjoy, which is why I haven't put them on book death row. They're generally by authors that I already know I like, or these two were given to me as gifts, which means I didn't want to put them on book death row because that didn't seem right. So we've got The Culture of Honour by Danny Silk and The Dark Night of the Soul by St John of the Cross. So these ones haven't gone on death row because they were gifts and are ones that I'm fairly confident I'm going to like. And then we've got three which are by authors that I know I like, and again that's the reason why they didn't go on death row. So that is The Secret Adversary by Agatha Christie. I'm not sure when I'll get to this because this is a Tommy and Tuppence novel and I haven't started them yet. I'm currently working my way through the Hercule Poirot books, but I might alternate with the Tommy and Tuppence ones. I haven't decided yet. Then we've got Barnaby Rudge by Charles Dickens, and then finally we've got Pearls, Girls and Monty Bodkin and Bachelors Anonymous by P.G. Wodehouse. I really love P.G. Wodehouse, so I'm fairly confident I'm going to enjoy that. And if one month I need something that's a bit light-hearted, then that was probably the one I will go for. So then I've got a little stack of books that are going onto this list to be my sort of shortlist ones I pick from each month. These are ones that went on my TBR in 2015, and I didn't actually add that many books to my TBR in 2015. It was a year I managed to avoid buying too many books somehow, or the ones I did buy in that year I've managed to already read them, so that's not too bad. One of these is already on book death row because it's one of the lowest rated books on my Goodreads. It actually doesn't have any ratings. It's not one I'm confident I'm going to enjoy, to be fair. So this is called Sunflowers by G.C. Gedge. I'm not entirely sure what this is about, but when I read the first chapter it seems to be quite moralistic. I think it's very much of a time period. It's produced by the Religious Tract Society, so I think it's an example of early Christian fiction which can be a bit hit or miss. So that's why that was on book death row. Some of these other ones I may put them on book death row, but again they're mostly by authors that I think I'm going to like, so there's only one that I think actually may end up on book death row, but I'm not definitely sure because the way I'm putting books on death row is a bit different now to what it was before. The first one here, I actually did read about half of it when I first bought it, which I think was 2013, and then I never quite got around to finishing it. So this is God's Big Picture by Vaughan Roberts, which is kind of an overview of the story of what happens in the Bible to try and put all the books of the Bible into context. I got to about halfway through it. My bookmark is still in there from when I was reading it. I don't remember very much of it, so I will probably start over and reread that one from the beginning. The next one I bought when I was doing my masters because at the time I started my masters, the author was actually the president of the college I was studying at. And so this is Paradoxology by Krish Kandiah. I've heard really good things about this book and I bought it and I meant to read it right away and clearly have not got around to it yet. Then I have a couple of books that I bought on for New Year's 2014-15. Some friends and I went and stayed in London for a few days and we did a little bit of a bookshop crawl. So these are three books that I bought during that. So we've got Ruth by Elizabeth Gaskell. I really do love Elizabeth Gaskell's writing, so I'm fairly sure I'm going to like that one. Ivanhoe by Sir Walter Scott, and this was quite inexpensive little old edition of this. I've not actually read any Walter Scott and I have quite a few of his books, so I need to try and get to this fairly soon. And then we've got The Golden Arrow by Mary Webb, which I think I bought because she is a Webb, and so I am probably related to her because that's how names work, me being a Webb as well. She wasn't an author I'd heard of before I saw her book, and I think she was quite prolific in her day, so I'm really keen to read that one, and again it's a really nice old edition of that. And then I've got 2 books by the same author, and it's an author that I really like, so I'm fairly confident I'm going to enjoy them. These are books 2 and 3, I believe, from the Dirk Gently series by Douglas Adams. So we've got The Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul, which is the second book, and then The Salmon of Doubt, which I think is the unfinished third book, and then I think they've also added some of his other writings. I'm not quite sure. So Douglas Adams died during the writing of The Salmon of Doubt, which was going to be the third book in the Dirk Gently series. But there seems to be 2 different versions of it. There is an introduction that I think explains what happened. I don't know. I really enjoyed the first book in this series, and Douglas Adams is a writer I do enjoy. So, and then finally we have An Officer and a Spy by Robert Harris. So Robert Harris is an author that has been a bit hit and miss for me. You'll have seen Enigma actually is already on Book Death Row. I'm not sure if this one is actually meant to be non-fiction. I've only read his fiction before. I think I got this in a charity shop, and I'm not entirely sure whether I'll enjoy it or not, so I might stick this one on Book Death Row. I don't know. But that is it. That is an update on what the oldest books on my Goodreads TBR are, which ones I managed to get to in 2019, which was one of my goals of 2019, and which ones I'm aiming to try and get through this year. There's quite a few of them there still. I'm sort of trying to catch up the rate at year relating to year, so last year I was trying to catch up about 5 years in the background. I seem to have added quite a lot in 2016, but actually the majority of the books on my shelves came out of storage in 2017, which is the year I moved into this house. So whether I'll keep up of doing it catch up 1 year at a time, or how that's going to look from next year, I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, I think that's it for today. So let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them, if you think I should try and get to them sooner, if you think I will enjoy them or not. I'd love to hear from you if that's the case. How do you go about reading the oldest books that you've owned? Do you have a way of tracking that? How long do you have books on your shelves before you get around to reading them? Because this is quite a big problem for me, because I buy so many books and then it's always a toss-up between, do I read the books that I've recently bought because then I can justify buying them, or do I read the ones that have been sitting on my shelves for the longest, or somewhere in the middle? So have a chat to me down in the comments about any or all of those things. Please like this video if you liked it, and please subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps me to know that people want to engage with my channel when they subscribe. You can also follow me on my social media to get up-to-date info on what I'm reading, so that's Goodreads, and I'm also on Twitter, so you can find out that information in the description box below. But that's it for today, so thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye!